Economists are anticipating an interest rate increase to be announced today, and that decision will form part of the outcomes of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, which will also highlight high inflation along with dwindling economic growth. We're now joined by Asif Hoosen, Audi South Africa Head of Retail Planning and Supply Chain, to take a look at how interest rates have impacted that sector. Thank you very much, Asif, for your time this afternoon. Perhaps let's start with just a bit of context in terms of how the sector is faring, or how it has fared, especially over the past year in terms of new vehicle sales.
Thank you for having me, and good afternoon to everybody. It's been an interesting year. We're coming through a period where during the COVID period, the interest rates had declined and global supply limitations had impacted the used car market. Combined with that, we've had people working from home, so of course they were traveling less, and we've had customers holding onto their cars for longer periods of time. So in a sense, there has been pent-up demand in the market. So as the interest rates have started to increase since November 2021, the car market was in a situation where we had more customers than cars due to global supply challenges. But it reached a threshold around November last year where interest rates then went in excess of 10%, so went up in excess of 10% on the prime lending rate. And that's when we've seen the new car market begin to constrict a bit as customer affordability became more of an issue. Combined with the announcement of consistently higher levels of load shedding, this has definitely dampened the market for new car buyers.
Do you get into the psychology of why a person buys a car? I ask because we understand that there's some 12 million South Africans that actually own a car. You can tell when you leave in the morning or in the afternoon in terms of traffic volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just have to look at the traffic, look in the traffic, and you see people next to you, and there's usually just one person in the car. And we've seen over a period of time that, firstly, I think from a mobility perspective, in the absence of, an infrastructure that provides efficient and effective ride-hailing services or taxi services as well, it has become necessary for consumers to drive their own cars. And carpooling isn't something that South Africans are familiar with. And South Africans also see their vehicles as an extension of their image. And we found that over a period of time that this is what customers in South Africa would like to, that's how they choose to consume. And with ride-hailing services coming in now, there's definitely an increase in take-up of that offering, but it hasn't really affected the size of the car market, new cars or used cars for that matter.
Yeah, I wanted to get into that in terms of new cars and used cars. You say South Africans see their cars as an extension of their image. That's quite interesting in these tough times. Is there any difference between new and used cars?
Well, here's the interesting thing, because usually when the market tightens up, the used car market becomes more buoyant purely because of the inflationary pressure on the new car side of the market. But what's happened over the past 2 years is there's been an undersupply of cars into the market, which meant that used cars were hard to come by, which drove up the used car prices. And of course, new cars were hard to come by too. So the whole market recalibrated, where customers were being offered a lot more for their used cars over the past 2 years. In some instances, even more than the purchase price that they had originally committed to in terms of finance agreements, etc. But since the dynamic of the increasing interest rates and just the dampened mood of the economy, the used car market now has had to recalibrate itself as well. So in other words, cars were probably bought in at higher prices and now stand in at higher prices. So over a period of time, this has to reduce and recalibrate. So right now, the new car market and the used car market are not exactly buoyant. But we expect that the used car market in the second half of the year, as the dealers begin to recalibrate themselves and ensure that their pricing is at the right levels for consumers, I think we'll see more buoyancy in the used car market as well.
On the point of some South Africans seeing a car as an extension of their personality, are they particular about fuel efficiency, whether it's a rechargeable car, excuse my ignorance, I know nothing about vehicles, or whether, you pour petrol or diesel? And so what are we seeing in terms of the kinds of vehicles? Are they more careful about their footprint on the environment?
They are, and I think if you look at the price of the rising fuel costs in South Africa, I think consumers have no choice but to be sensitive to the rising fuel costs. And of course, geographically, we are a pretty expansive country as well. So definitely there's a shift into electric vehicles, and this is now pure electric vehicles, not hybrids or plug-in hybrids. And we've seen the volumes in the first 4 months this year double in comparison to the first 4 months last year. So there are about 300 electric vehicles, fully electric vehicles have already been sold up until the end of April, versus 150 last year for the same period. So definitely South African consumers are open to the idea of consuming electric vehicles and reducing their reliance upon fossil fuels. I think this also is tied in with the fact that many South Africans who have the means are reducing their dependency on the grid as well. So they are generating excess electricity at their residences. And then it makes sense for them to use that excess electricity to then fuel an electric car. So the market is in a bit of a transition phase at the moment. Of course, the price of electric cars is at the top end of the market for now. But as accessibility begins to improve and new products come to market, accessibility improves, of course, and then we are seeing a take-up of customers now willing to consume electric vehicles. So definitely a level of consciousness about cost, firstly, and secondly, in terms of environment and sustainability.
Fascinating. With that, your outlook for the market as well as consumer spend in light of the interest rate decision this afternoon?
Look, I think what will naturally happen is consumers would begin to get accustomed to, let's say, a bit of a new normal. It's been a bit of a shock to the system with the constant rise in interest rates since 2021. And today a further interest rate hike is expected. But at the same time, you find that all brands in the market in South Africa have also got to increase their competitiveness. So as strange as this may sound, it's actually a good time to buy a new car because we've moved from the last 2 years of where we had more customers than cars. And as the global supply chains began to adapt, we've now got more cars than customers. So that creates a really healthy competitive environment, and the different brands in the market, including ourselves, we are becoming more competitive with our offers. We're looking to see how we can ease the affordability burden on consumers. And I think what you'll find is a lot of attractive offers in the market going forward. So our outlook is that we are still positive about the market, of course. There's still probably going to be about 360,000 passenger cars sold this year and about 35,000 premium cars or luxury cars in the market. So there definitely is a market out there. But we don't see too much growth. We pretty much see that market relatively flat versus last year. But we see the competitiveness in the market improving to the benefit of South African consumers.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Asif Hoosen, Audi South Africa Head of Retail Planning and Supply Chain.